Good morning, everyone. This is the last chapter in my book, which I considered as my personal gift. It was written as this being the end. The song I chose is Angel of the Morning by Juice Newton. I have learned so many things through my experiences. I have learned that we are individuals in ourselves and we all play a part in this life on earth. It might be a small part, but it is an important part. We may not recognize our part. For some, such as me, it has become obvious. For others, it is not obvious. Each of us is individual and has a purpose. My son Jordan has a calling, which I didn't even recognize him as my son. But now I know how important this part represented in my life as I represented it in his. His death I blamed on me or felt guilt. But when you look at it from an individual point, I was part of his journey, even brief as it was, because it became apparent later on his true purpose in my life. It may not be over yet, but for him, I do not know what the future will bring or about his life on the other side. So I've learned that we all have a spirit within that is guiding us, and if we listen to it, we will learn our purpose, whether small or large. We are individual. We as individuals can only save ourselves. When we lose a loved one, give gratitude that we were part of this person's journey and they were a part of yours as we continue to fulfill our purpose. We are interconnected. People who come into our lives come for a reason. I have learned that a child needs to find his own way, as the child is individual, but as a parent is there for guidance, and the child first learns from his parent, then family. The signs and symbolisms of the birds on my path the day I went for a walk after writing down the words of what I believed to be the shared truth and only discovered the meaning months later after it happened. The meaning will come when it is supposed to. When I when I wrote the first part, I had no idea of what else would develop. I wrote for the reasons stated. It was presented to me in this way, and it will be kept true in this way. I had no idea that there was a message to come from all my learnings except through Susan B.H., who told me that the Spirit is telling me, sorry, who told me the Spirit is telling me that you are not finished and there is more to write. Although I knew in my heart that I had to write from the beginning, not knowing the end, I had a hard time in how I would present this to the readers so that they would believe in what I was being shown. The first part only identified that I was seeing spirits and that I was scared and trying to figure out why and who spirits are. I now feel my story I now feel my story in this part was my introduction to spirits. They are not ghosts that are trapped in a house. They are entities that exist from after physical death of a living person. I believe I will become a spirit after I die, as will you. This is what I learned in the first part. It was the second part that reassured me about the spirit. The spirit is alive before birth, and after death it exists in another place. The spirit can communicate with humans. Humans have a living spirit within them, and it can communicate with other spirits that are living or spirits from after death. The third part identified with me that communication through the spirit can be given through signs, symbolisms, dreams, thoughts, spirits, wildlife, humans, and at any time of day. It also gave me the message of what I believe is the truth to share with others. I have a choice in that I do not have to share a single word of what has been given to me, but I feel this would be wrong. It is too profound for me to keep inside. It is full of messages. I have no doubt in my mind that this is to be shared. I am a logical and reasonable person. I did question what I was being shown. What made me believe and have no doubt in myself was the visit from the woman with the red face and the woman that appeared the night after I wrote the words and that I was to share. It is believing that her message assured me it came from the Holy Spirit of God. It was in how the color was presented. It was powerful, but subtly presented. It was this, and knowing if I had wrote something I was not supposed to write, it would be known to me. It was being shown my home and the cherubs blowing the horn, which was given to me opposed to me thinking or creating it. It was presented to me. It was the resistance felt when I tried on different occasions to get close to my home, which I believed to be the home of God. It was what I learned about a son I did not know existed and reconnecting with him in a way I could not expect anyone to believe, but is so true. It was bringing my sister to me in a way I never thought possible. It is in knowing that there are people living today who have seen me in their vision and whom I have seen. They are expecting something from me. I know we will cross paths and we will recognize each other as they have been shown, and so have I. Will they come forward or hide? All of this through a mighty power of making one person aware and communicating to others about this power and knowledge learned. I told a friend not too long ago that my challenge was only beginning once I have released what is to be said. I have come through this for over 6 years now and have faced God through the Spirit. Now I will have to listen to others with their different cries, trusting in what has been presented through this book. I have made 3 attempts to complete my manuscript. Each time I believed that it was finished, there was more to write. I recall when I had my last session with Susan B.H., a spiritual medium in October 2015, she said to me, "Are you writing a book? Are you having problems finishing it?" I agreed, but at that time I thought it was because I could not find someone to edit what was written. She said, "They, meaning the spirits, are telling me there is more to write." My first reaction was, "No, I'm done. It is finished." But I was told there was more to write and to keep a journal by my bedside so I could write in it, which I did. Now I openly see there was more. In the first part, I was being introduced to the spirits, the fear that I had, how I came to accept those fears through my sister Sandy, and then once accepted, to observe and learn, knowing I had to expose what was being presented. This was all I expected, my encounter with the spirits. This is where I expected it to end. I hear about others who have encountered spirits, how those people communicate and act as a medium between the spirits and those that are not intuitive. This does not seem uncommon, and this is what I was expecting from it. I'm sure those mediums also have a story to tell of how they discovered what was happening to them. The next session was about discovering my son Jordan and him taking me on a journey while I was in my spiritual form. It gave more in-depth insight towards the spirit. It told me that the spirit is alive within my body before 3 months of pregnancy. It reassured me that the spirit is always around me, whether family or acquaintances, living or passed on. It identified to me I have a spirit that lives within me, and this spirit is capable of interconnecting with other spirits. It identified to me that there is another place, spoken as the other side. It gave me the experiences of my spirit being taken high up into the atmosphere through the galaxy and past the bright light. After this, I thought, there can't be more to write. How could there possibly be more after this event? Again, for the second time, I thought I was finished writing the manuscript. The last part, at least this is where I am now as of April the 18th, 2016, summarizes for me what the Spirit is all about through a session which I believe was a topic on meditation. It was from this session and forward that I came to realize the whole purpose of what I was writing. I wrote what I believe to be the light carried to me and to be shared within the community. The message has a focus on the Spirit. I was swept quickly into this session by the Spirit for a reason. The Spirit came through for me by showing me my home during meditation. I did not dream this up or think about this as my house. This was There was no preparation on my part. I believe it was presented to me by the Spirit. Then it presented the cherub blowing the trumpet. It was a very powerful statement. It happened not during the night, but during the day with others around. All of this reaffirms for me that this is all real and purposely presented in exactly the right way for not only me, but for those that have an ear. How exceptional this whole journey set up for me has been. Even the way it has been presented to you is exceptional. Writing about my personal fears of the Spirit in the beginning to how I came to accept these fears, to openly discuss about the Spirit, to being taken on a journey to the other side with the spirit of my son, whom I did not know existed, to being led to a session where it could be summarized. How incredible and profound my teachings have been. No one, including me, could make this story up without having this intervention. All the symbolisms and signs introduced I could not begin to identify, as they are well beyond infinite. I actually believe this true journal has no end, but at the same time, I have to draw a line so I can present it as a manuscript. My journey has taught me about symbolisms and signs. It taught me how powerful the Spirit of God is and God Himself. It taught me that I was being prepared from an early age, my course of life. It taught me how distant from God I personally was, how I, with very little faith, have come to understand through my teachings and lessons, through my life, the meaning of life itself. It gave me a message to send to others which I believe to be true, because I learned them through the Spirit of God and by knowledge from learning and in my heart. I have witnessed the power of God through subtle, gentle persuasion. This I have seen. I understand that I should fear the extent of God's power. This power should not be taken for granted. After writing my manuscript of what has happened since around April of 2010, I felt compelled to write what my intent is afterwards. How was I to introduce my journal to the community? Once I thought I was finished writing and had it out there, I could not help but wonder what this all means, what I have been shown and where I was and where I was heading. It was very spiritual, and I've since learned that my spirit within is guiding me. My spirit and those spirits that are around me, including my family, are all guiding me. Even though I know my future is already written and my spiritual guides are leading me, or should I say coaching me, I am as I move forward. I still don't know the ending. I still don't know what I'm to do or how I'm to do this. All I know is that there is more to it, and if I do steer wrong, I will be led differently. I have learned a long time ago when I first started to write that if something was not to be written, I would know. A specific example was when I was living at the ski hill and writing at the computer in the small bedroom. I had no idea how to put my thoughts down or how to organize what was happening. I thought at that time, how much do I tell? I was writing about my mother's mom, and I was hesitant as to whether I should add something about her as I typed it into the manuscript. All of a sudden, the doorbell started ringing as if someone was holding their finger on it. I got up to see what was wrong, but there was no one at the door. It stopped for a bit and then started to ring again when I got back to my desk. No explanation except it might be a default in the doorbell. The next morning, as I was in the bathroom getting ready for the day, I again thought about my grandmother and how she had made her presence known at the house I grew up in. At that time, Mom and I were having a conversation about her mom, and one of the small little teacups and saucers associated with her fell off a flat shelf. She made herself known at this time, and again I felt she was making herself known. This time it was displeasure about what was being written. At this time, when I was getting ready this morning in the bathroom and thinking about her, the doorbell again started ringing. The doorbell was fine up to this point, and it has never happened after this. This was no doubt a loud and clear sign. These two signs were one of my first introductions as to how strong and clear the sign can be and at the right time of interference. I have learned so much from my teachings by the Spirit that I have to put trust or faith in the spirits as my guides. What do I do with what I have learned or experienced? It was always obvious to me that I had to go through the church of what I've learned. After I was finished my manuscript for the second time, and I thought nothing more could top my experience with Jordan, it was very important for me to talk with my minister. I believe that my minister is a spiritual leader, as I believe all representatives of the church are spiritual leaders. This is my perception. Whether right or wrong, this is how I interpret my church and minister. One who knows should know about the Spirit, or at least something about the Spirit. After all, that has happened, there is no doubt in my mind that the focus is spiritual. I also asked if he would look to the community of the other churches for their opinion. What are their beliefs towards the Spirit? If the church did not have an opinion, how was I to tell the rest of the community about this? After my close friends and family members, it was important to me to share first with the church. There are 7 churches in this small community and a movement of spiritual people who do not attend church. I will also search out to those that have been involved with my experiences and let them read from the beginning to end. These people are truly spiritual, and through the guidance of the spirits have directed me to them. They have played an enormous part, and I want to show them how much appreciation I have for them. These are my 3 close friends who also have played a major role, all which I hold close to me. These 3 have been listening to what I've been saying and know I speak the truth. Then I need to find a way to expose my manuscript. I want to do it in such a way that I can offer it for free, but use the internet to connect with others. This will be the major challenge, but those that I have crossed paths with might very well come into play. My personal gift. Many people who read this, many people who read this book will take many different views and opinions. It will depend on who you are and where you live and where in life you are. There is no concern that is no concern of mine. What I have learned is very personal and could be another book, but I will try to condense so I do know I am good at as I do know I am good at being direct. I asked myself, what did I realize what I was writing about? Oh, brother. I asked myself, when did I realize what I was writing about my calling of faith? So now I will walk you through my life and briefly let you know through my eyes why I needed help. When I was growing up, I remember going to church with my family and many times just my grandparents on my dad's side. The ritual has not changed over the years in our church. At a point in service, we the children would go downstairs for Sunday school. This is where I learned about Jesus, about the stories of good that he did. I was very drawn or learned from these experiences that he must have felt good to give and that he was so kind and gentle and people loved him for being this way. At an early age, I was influenced by these teachings. I love my family and especially my grandparents. My grandma taught me how to pray when I was young. That I was to pray for my family and those people that didn't have much. Although I knew about praying, I did not keep this in my routine. We did not mention God or Jesus in my home. It was only a Sunday event. On my mom's side, I did not get to know my grandparents, but my mom's aunt, who was my grandmother's sister, my great Aunt Mary, whom I have mentioned, did take a role as a grandparent figure. My family and great Aunt Mary spent many of my childhood Sundays together. Most Christmas services were spent with my Aunt Mary. It was one of those occasions that I talked about earlier where I saw the woman who was glowing at this church in Arnprior. It was great Aunt Mary who gave me my first Bible. I recall holding it and feeling special with this gift. I don't recall my age, but I might have been around 7 or 8 as I know I could read. It was very colorful and had a picture of Jesus on the front and it was zippered for protection. It came in a box with the same covering as the outside of the Bible. It also came with a blue cardboard folded extra piece which had the Lord's Prayer and the Apostles' Creed. It contained more, but these two stood out. I wanted to learn these pieces by memory. I have since lost this Bible. I can't help but mention through my experiences how important grandparents are to children and that a child is very influenced at a young age. I was blessed to have these teachings in my life. When I was older, or should I say after the death of my sister, I became very angry inside. I can't recall my thoughts of why, but I guess it was losing someone you love and not understanding or being taught what was happening. I did know she was gone to heaven, but I did not know why or understand my feelings of loss. I had no one to turn to except myself. During this angry time, I was rebellious with my family. I challenged them with words. I recall hitting my sister Barb with a tennis racket on her behind and making her cry and leaving a mark. Dad lashed out at me. I remember thinking to myself, why am I like this? but did not understand it. There was no direction as I grew into my teenage years. I only had my morals learned as a child. As I had mentioned earlier, I did try to take my own life. I did not see any future or direction, and I was a person that I didn't understand or even like. On those occasions that I had tried taking my life, I lay there with tears. My thoughts were of my sister and how I wanted to be with her. There was no fear of dying, knowing I had a purpose. It was Michael, my first husband, who I met at age 14, which helped me through. He might not even realized his importance in my life at that time. It was just having someone to talk to, a friend. With the birth of my first child, but my second pregnancy, I wanted to teach her what I had learned and started to go back to church. My daughter was baptized, as was my son. The cycle continued with my second child. It wasn't long after this that going to church just didn't happen. All through my life and raising my family, the only time I tried to reconnect with the church was with the birth of my children. I knew of its importance or role for a child, but I did not know my role for my life. I had lost a faith which I had never really found. After my second divorce, I started to go back to church. I wanted to know more. I guess without knowing it, I was seeking help on my own. I knew the church represented to me goodness, caring, and loving. I also know how much love I'm capable of giving through my children and family. I recall being at work and during lunch I found on the internet a survey to see what your perspective of faith is. I never take surveys or stray from work related topics, but I could not help myself. It was a long survey with many questions, but when completed, it told me more or less that I was not sure whether to believe or not. Just reading the questions made me realize my lack of faith. Again, the church did not speak to me, and again I stopped trying. It was not until I was subjected to the appearance of the spirits that I had to find my answers, and although still not going to church on a regular basis, it was on my mind to learn more. It was only after I moved back to my hometown and the year before my sister Barb came to stay with me that I began to go to church regularly. It was not until after the 2-day session with Lily that I realized I was a messenger and servant to God. Lily's session talks about getting to know ourselves spiritually. This 2-day session taught me so much about myself, my direction, and symbolisms, and more importantly, what was being presented was extremely powerful. What I was seeing all these years were teaching me not only that there was a spirit and I could share what I was seeing, but the grandeur of the whole entity. If this small amount of what was being presented to me is just a small part of what can be given, then my eyes are open wide to believe in what is to come. There is no doubt that I need to learn more. God, through his direction and teachings by way of the Holy Spirit, has made me aware of this greatness. I still have choice, but my choice has always been given. I will choose my fate with faith in God to continue to learn of Jesus, to love who he is, and continue to help those that need my help through him. I do not know where I will be led, but I do know how. When I read over what I believe to be the truth I'm to share, I start to comprehend the meaning of the Spirit. I have also observed in a brief amount of time that there are people who believe they are spiritual but do not want to learn about Jesus. I also see that the church believes and teaches about Jesus, but knows very little about spirituality. Christianity has taught me that there are three identities within God to believe. They are God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. This comes through the church. So why don't they talk about the Spirit? I know they have to be aware of this subject, but why have they chosen to ignore or have no focus? I don't want to dwell on this topic, but it is quite evident to me that there are missing key components on both sides of Christianity and spirituality. Who am I to preach about this? I ask myself. I have absolutely no qualifications in any of this. I'm the person who was not sure there was a God or Jesus or a spirit. I'm the person who has broken rules through my life. It is not something that I'm pleased about or want to remember, but it is in my past and I have to live with it. I have lived the life of a sinner, but I can't help but feel that this was all part of who I am today and where I am going. I am one human who is far from perfection. I like to think that I have learned, but what good is learning if you don't know its purpose? I want to learn about my purpose and with the value of my life and the value of my life. This is a gift given to me that I want to share with others. Although this is the last chapter in the book, I will finish with one more video to include the author's notes, the poem I wrote inserted at the back of the book, and a brief outlook of what to expect as my journey continues. I promise the next book will touch your heart. So thank you everyone for listening and stay tuned and talk to you soon.